this not why you were here?
Episode 5. We're back, guys. We made it. All right, episode 5. We have a big one for you guys, everybody out there, all the champions listening, everybody on YouTube. Feel free to make comments. We're reading. We're following along. We're talking to the community. We're talking about Champions Ascension. We're talking about Prime Minds. And like I said, we're back with episode 5. There's a lot of things to cover today. First of all, I know everybody knows. I know why everybody is tuning in. We have Icetoad joining us a little bit later today. And it's so funny because when we got together, me and the fellas that are on the Prime Minds, we were kind of like, hey, we're going to start, something, just talking, something that's going to be fun, kick back, talk a little bit of shit, and just build together and talk about Champions Ascension as a fun thing. Who would have thought 5 episodes in, we have the man himself, Icetoad, joining us here in a few minutes. But Prime Minds, yeah, let's talk about that. I'm proud of us. We're 5 episodes in. How are you guys feeling about the podcast and what we're doing so far? By the dip, how you feeling?
He's feeling very bullish, definitely.
Yeah, he's muted.
Yeah, what happened there?
Let's go somewhere else.
Hey,
We're here.
My bad. I was talking on mute, but yeah, I'm
You're
very
here.
bullish on this, guys. Like I said, we did get some little bit of alpha dropped and some info on the game and how the progression is going.
How we feeling? Look, we're gonna get into that, man. How's everybody feeling about what we're doing in this podcast? And you guys go around. I gotta pull up our notes again. But how are we feeling about our podcast? What we're doing?
Love it, man. It's a great passion, and I'm bullish on our future.
Yeah, this is Bunzaga, and I'm feeling great about it. It's a lot of fun, and it's been really enjoyable chatting with the Champions Ascension employees and getting all the information about the game.
Hey, good morning. This is V to G. I'm stoked, man. We actually got, I know we're going to talk about it a little bit more, but we got a little bit of love in a recent Medium article, so that felt good. Felt nice to be, acknowledged for the work we're putting in. We're not doing it for acknowledgement. We're doing it just for the fun of it. But it's cool to see that love coming from the community and from the developers. So stoked.
V-Mackin over here, and I'm just, bullish every day, bro. I've gone full on DGen, but I always seem to find my way back to Champions Ascension, and this podcast definitely has kept my interest peaked and keeps me going. And I hope there's other community members out there that look forward to hearing us on the weekend, because I know I look forward to talking with you gentlemen, and talking Champions Ascension when we get the chance.
Give me one sec, guys. You guys hear me okay right now?
You're good, man.
Yeah, you're on.
All right. Yeah. So, you know what? We also they gave us a mention. They gave us a shout out, which we're very grateful for. And we have a Twitter page going. So people listening, the Twitter page, Prime Minds Pod. Everyone that follows us on Prime Minds Pod on Twitter, Eternal follows Eternal. We'll definitely follow you guys back. So you know what? A lot has been happening. It looks like we got a little bit of an alpha drop yesterday, and I know a lot of us were waiting for something, right? For some word from the devs, see where this project is going. I've been bullish since the start. I still am. I understand that sometimes things do take time, but of course, we want to hear from the devs, and we want to hear where the progress is. What do you guys think about the alpha drop that we got yesterday? I think there is some sort of adjustment in the timeline or the roadmap. And again, there was a little article on Medium just kind of addressing what the progresses look like. What you guys thinking?
I think it's a step in the right direction. I mean, the Web3 community is supposed to be all about interaction with the end user, right? So for us, the more news that we get, the more it's going to continue to feel like it's developing from a Web2 gaming company into something more that I think all of us who are kind of in the NFT space are used to seeing. So that's got me bullish on the fact that they're starting to come around to the Web3 mindset. Even if it's bad news, you know what I mean? It's better to know what's going on than not.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to that as well. I think history in the gaming industry usually silent, like no news is good news. Where I think in the NFT space and in Web3, no news is bad news, and I think that people need to start rethinking the way that they're marketing the project and including the community with more transparency. And so I think that they're on a good path for that.
Yeah, it seems like that's a part of the and part of the new Web3 industry, especially when there's a company that's doing things a little bit differently. There's, of course, there's some learning curves, right? It's like how do you address and approach the Web3 space? Who else? I mean, what else you guys got? What do you think about the alpha drop yesterday and where we're headed?
We got some really good insight. This is by the dip, by the way. And we got some good insight from Zero Cool, man. Like, he says one of the greatest challenges was regulatory compliance, right? With in-game economy and everything. So from what this is they tackled that first, where a lot of the projects, sometimes they'll leave that to the end. So I'm really glad that they got over this hill, which it seems like they did. And it makes everything probably going to go that much smoother and faster as well.
Right.
And I guess just to echo a lot of the sentiment, like I love. Oh, sorry, this is V to G, by the way. I love what Dip just brought up there. That Zero Cool did bring that up. In the real world, I work for a large organization, and I know that there's often times where you just can't share information legally. You're not able to. But I think, and again to Bunzaga's point, Jam City's really going to need to figure out how they balance those two things, because frankly, this is not going to work if the community is not involved, right? So hopefully this is just that first big hurdle that they need to get over, and now that we're over that hurdle, everything we can kind of just go back to everybody's just vibing in the Discord, because the vibe in the Discord has not been super great lately, and that does reflect our community sentiment about the way we're feeling about this project.
Mm-hmm. I like a happy community, man. I mean, the fact that there's Web3 and the community is such a big part of it. That's what makes a game like this, right? That's what makes Web3 in general so powerful and bringing people together. And that's a big reason why I'm here, right? A lot of us put some ETH up, and we talk about that a lot. It's no, can't say it's an investment, right? But there's some of that, right? We put some money up. We want to see what that looks like. We want it to work out for everybody. We all want to make it. But I love the community that we're building. I love doing this podcast. Last week we had on the guilds and talked about how they're building community in the guilds and making those relationships. That's the beautiful part about Web3, man. It's bringing everybody closer. Look, right now I'm over here, Eastern time zone, talking to my homies out in the West Coast in the mountain time. The gentleman we're bringing on today, I think he's Colombia. Am I correct? Right?
Sir, yeah,
Colombia. Yeah.
Yeah,
and then we got devs all over the world. Go ahead.
Sorry about that, Dip. My King Dav, my apologies. I did just want to, beforehand, say this podcast is not financial advice, and it is purely for educational purposes.
There you go. We're going to put that in the beginning.
What am I doing here then? I just came here for financial advice. What? Wait, what?
Icetoad is in. My man, look, I was going to give you a proper intro. What's up, man? Look, this is Icetoad, the man with all the magic. He's the bringer of the sneak peeks into this game and one of the pioneers in the Web3 gaming. Look, if it wasn't for this gentleman here and the team, we wouldn't have this community that we were just talking about. We wouldn't be doing this. If we did this podcast, we wouldn't have shit to talk about. So thanks for what you do. From what I understand, Vice President, Studio General Manager at Jam City, Bogota.
Yep.
Icetoad, ladies and gentlemen, how you doing, man?
Hey, man, what's up? I'm doing fantastic. I'm really honored and humbled to be here with you guys. I honestly think that our community is is what makes this project special. It's what keeps us going. It's our gasoline. So being in the middle of it feels magical.
Mm-hmm. We're just talking about the international aspect, and it's so it's a little bit on that. It's like you're of course in Colombia, right? And I was trying to get my facts straight. Is that where you're located?
I am in beautiful Bogota, Colombia.
Oh man, I'd love to see what it looks like there. I've never been. And then some of your colleagues are in Toronto, Canada, correct?
And others are in LA, and others are in San Francisco.
How does that? So the community, the community is global, and the devs are global. I think that's a beautiful part of this whole thing, right? But how does that look like when you work with folks from around the globe? Like, how do you work together on this project?
Well, frankly, it was one of the things that really enticed us about joining Jam City back in the day. When we joined Jam City, part of the things that really felt very interesting to us, because look, the indie life is very different from the corporate life. When you join a big company such as ours with 1,500 employees or whatever, things do change. And one of the things that we knew were going to change for the better was the fact that we would have like access and connection to this pretty much global community of game developers and people that are excited about games, and that has been pretty much part of the story of us within the company. Now, when we started working on Champions Ascension, and this was pretty much born as a multi-studio project, it was definitely. I think it was definitely one of the things that excited us from the get-go, when we looked at how each studio was bringing like its greatest strengths. It was sort of like building. I'm going to give you guys a lot of references to soccer because I'm Colombian. Okay, so it was like building a soccer team with the right player in the middle, the right forward, the right goalie, etc., etc. And the thing is that, believe it or not, those cultural differences that each studio has, actually, if all the studios are collaborating towards the same goal, all those little cultural differences actually add flavor to the project. I've always been a big believer in that. Like, cultural differences just makes it stronger. I mean, Colombia is a culturally, we're very culturally mixed. We have a lot of influence from Europe. We have a lot of influence from the US. We have a lot of influence from our own, indigenous roots. And I've always believed that makes you stronger as a creative. And I've always also believed that that always trickles down into your product, even if you're not consciously aiming to do that. And so when you mix all that, cultural and originality from each of the studios, you have what you guys are starting to see come together in Champions.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing, and I agree with you. I think we all do. It's like that's a big strength to this project. So yeah, I'm happy that's the case. And you talked a little bit about the indie game, independent. So I know that you developed a game and started working with Jam City, things like that. But talk about what you did in career to get to that point of developing a game, and then how you were brought into Jam City, and what that what that journey kind of looked like.
Sure. So I was born in I'll go fast. So I'll skip. So I had my start in the creative business in advertising for quite a while. I worked almost a decade in advertising, usually in digital advertising. And back in 2010, I ended up founding Brains, which is a Colombian video game studio with my partner Alejo, who some of you might have seen around in some AMAs and in some of the conversations that we've had around Champions. Yeah. He and I, seeing the potential of the mobile space, and seeing the potential that it brought in, like democratizing the access to the publishing business, we thought that could, open the door for countries like ours to actually create good content and be competitive. Because before that, I mean, one of the cool things that the mobile revolution did was before that you could only pretty much work in a AAA studio or work with a AAA studio and have a sustainable business. Of course, you had indie companies here and there, but it was too risky, especially in a country like ours where we didn't have a lot of track record in building games. Right? I've always given the example that deciding to make games in Colombia was like trying to make tequila in Iceland. It was like no track record. No production pipeline established. The government had no idea what we were doing. Like, how do we support you? And so but we did see the opportunity on mobile. But we were always gamers at heart. So our line was always we always built games that were geared towards like the mid-core audience, right? Just because of the use case of the phone, we never tried to build a game that required too many hours to become good at it. We were always looking at like walking that fine line between like depth and accessibility. And we worked with many companies. We released our own games. We got recognition. Like we had a couple of games that were best of the year in Apple, in Latam, and we even worldwide. World War II was best of 2017, if I recall correctly. When World War II was best in show back in the Casual Connect for the Indie Prize was the best game in the show. We've worked with companies such as Square Enix. We've worked with companies in Korea. We've worked in companies in Germany. I think that's also, as you can see, there's like this repeating story of we really enjoy working with teams outside of our country and like collaborating with multicultural teams. Mm-hmm. And we in the last decade we built a lot of experience walking that line in midcore and exploring how that and free to play and came together. And World War II was the product that brought both Gem City and Brains, our old studio, together, and we felt that it was a very good opportunity to collaborate and to build nice. A long-lasting relationship, and the rest is history, pretty much.
And you were in digital advertising and gaming, or did you learn gaming and developing, or later on, or how'd that work?
Yeah. Pretty much. That's a pretty good question. When you're in digital advertising, I mean, I actually became a creative director at the advertising company that I was in, and then I became like it was called the chief strategic officer, and then back then you had a lot of opportunities of doing advert gaming whenever it made sense for the company to do so, right? So, for example, PepsiCo Frito-Lay was one of our clients. And we did some advert games for Chester Cheetah, I remember, for Cheetos, and that story repeated across all the other products where we're creating certain forms of digital engagement made sense just beyond just, AdWords or whatever, and that was I of course, as a gamer, I always took the opportunity to whenever it made sense to dabble into advert gaming, and that's how I started getting a lot of my initial experience in game design. My experience in creativity, but I had pretty much always worked on the creative space. I wrote and published 2 novels before that, and so I mean, creativity and had always been sort of like one of the purposes of my life. But gaming was my love, right? So it was I always felt the urge to see how I could get close to the world of gaming, and advertising allowed me to dabble into a lot of that, and that's actually how I met Alejo. Alejo is a genius, by the way. I'm just going to say this out straight. He's probably one of the persons that I've always known that have been most connected with like the development space, but he's the kind of guy that is like always on the edge of technology. You know what I mean? Like, but he does that naturally. Have you ever met those people that are like super effortlessly in the know-how of what is the latest feature in Unity, for example? And you're like, dude, when do you read that? When do you know that? And so,
sharp people, sharp minds. Yes. And you sound like one too. So you made the first company with Alejo then. Is that you guys partnered up and okay? Continue. Yeah, just following along.
No, and so he was always. And so he actually had this company before that where we worked together. I actually worked with him in a lot of advertising campaigns, etc. Because he was my go-to guy whenever we wanted to do something in the agency that was like that everyone in the agency told you that was too hard to do. Like, yeah, you can't do that with Facebook. Or no, you can't do that type of game. Or no, you can't do that thing. And I always like picked up the phone and asked Alejo, can this be done? And he told me, yes, it's hard, but it can be done. And I love working with people that have that type of answers, usually. And that when it's impossible, you believe them, right? Because if Alejo says that can't be done, then you know it can't be done right now. At least humans have not developed that technology so far. And so when we started thinking about when we saw the opportunity of the mobile space. And we started thinking about that. He told me, I think we should create a gaming company. Are you willing to live your advertising life? And I said, are we allowed to curse on this podcast?
Yes, please. Yes, of course. We're talking. It's just me and you.
Fuck yes. Fuck yes. Now, let's do it. Fuck yeah. Let's do games, please. And we got back then, like in 2010, 2011, there were only, I don't know, 4 gaming companies in Colombia. There was one that was very well established, and we're actually very good friends with like all the gaming studios in Colombia. The Colombian ecosystem of video game development, I think, is very healthy because it spawned from like what we call co-opetition. Everyone is helping out everyone. Everyone is sharing. Has always been like sharing contacts and sharing opportunities. Everyone's rooting for everyone. How do you guys say, like, all tides lift all boats, something like that? That
rising tide.
Mindset? Rising tides lift all boats. Exactly. That's sort of how we approach the space here in Colombia on the game development environment. And barring some very punctual exceptions, it has always been like that.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. So it sounds like just a couple talented guys got together, did some great things that people said that were not possible. And you're exactly right. Sometimes experts just tell you what's not possible, but you got to think outside the box and think more towards the future to see what is possible and work towards it. And that's like, I think we had a big question too. It's like, and I'm curious, looking at a company like Jam City that's established, right? They're in Web 2. Very successful with the mobile gamings, a lot of downloads, over 1 billion downloads. And then they're looking forward still. And I'm wondering how that process came about, where it's like, oh, there's something new happening, guys. It's like, it's Web3, there's NFT gaming, there's something brand new on the horizon. Let's go out there, let's be the pioneers of this space too. How did that come about with Jam City? Like what made the company come around to thinking about doing Champions Ascension and venturing into the NFT gaming space?
So I think you have to remember that our founders, both Ava and Chris, and they were the founders of MySpace. So these guys sort of have always had their pulse on what is coming next, and I think they understand. They they're really good at reading opportunities. So again, Josh, coming from his like entertainment background, and like I think they can tell when something is for real, for sure. And if you add that to the, I cannot say enough about how much of a legend this man is. But Johnny Casamasina, our senior VP of creative and game design, he's I think like when they got together and they definitely saw the opportunity, and Johnny started pushing on that. I remember he called me probably I mean more than a year ago and told me this is a great opportunity. I think we're going to push this forward.
Wow.
I'll circle back in a bit, but this is huge. This is going to be huge. And he was not wrong. He was wrong.
More than a year ago, most people didn't hear about NFTs. But go ahead.
Yeah. He already had his ear on the ground.
Yeah.
For sure.
So a quick question on growing up in Colombia, and I see that you said it was very hard to get in the gaming industry. Can you kind of elaborate on some of that and let us know, like, what are some of the challenges when you were getting into the gaming, living in Colombia?
Well, first of all, costs of execution, right? Back then, as I said, even if you were an indie studio, first of all, one thing is access. If you're living in Colombia, you're 10, 15 years ago, you're completely disconnected from any opportunity of, going to any to GDC or to Gamescom or to any, PAX or whatever. And so unless you spend money, and a lot of people, you don't have the amount of money that is required to fly to San Francisco and stay a week there in a hotel that, are usually costly. And so even from like the access to the community and to the publishers, that's hard. But also back then, the budget of pretty much every game was in the millions of dollars, and that's something that you couldn't get funded for here in Colombia. The VC space was also was nascent, which was pretty much non-existent. We were lucky enough to join forces with a VC fund here in Colombia called Promotora, which saw the opportunity of video games and the mobile space. So there were actually many factors, and of course you had back then. There wasn't a lot of like the development content and development structure here in Colombia. Now that has changed. There's a lot of universities that are looking at development and game design and gaming in general as a venue, even esports as a venue for education. But 15 years ago, that was non-existent. So it really posed a challenge because we pretty much had to become the university and become merge with the education system and try to. I think that's also one of the reasons why everyone was sort of like rowing towards the same goal in the different studios, because we all benefited from making sure that the people that started working in the industry were as proficient as possible, learned as fast as possible, got all the knowledge that they could get. So there were many challenges, to be frank.
I can imagine. Icetoad, so you're a gamer, advertiser, creative mind. Early on, what type of games did you like to play? Oh, and what games kind of inspired you to get into gaming?
I'm going to date myself, but
Let's
so
do
I
it.
guess I think the first game that really made an impression on me was Final Fantasy 1, the NES game. Because it was the first game that I played that really exposed me to narrative and gaming, and that's always something that's been dear and to my heart. I mean, narrative. I don't think all games need a story, but I do think all games have narrative. But and just to give you an example, I think Tetris has its own thing going on with the narrative and the Tetrominos and even the music and how every shape has its role, etc. So you have like context, but I personally have always loved narrative and lore. And Final Fantasy 1 was one of the first games that connected me to that. And then you had the beautiful, gorgeous explosion of adventure games back in the 90s from Sierra and LucasArts. So you had King's Quest, Quest for Glory, which was Hero's Quest at first, Codename Iceman,
Man, I remember
Curse of Monkey
King's
Island. King's was, and all like 8 of them were great. I think I played up until the 8th. That was by Roberto and Roberta and William, the Williams couple. I just forgot their names. I forget,
they're actually about to come out with a new one.
Exactly. I was going to mention that they're working on a new one, which I will certainly play. So all those adventure games back in the 90s, Full Throttle, Day of the Tentacle, all those games were like huge influences for me. I loved playing those games. And then as I don't know if some of you guys might remember, but then CDs came out and you started getting a little bit more. A lot of these games started worrying a little bit more about like the visuals and technology more than the gameplay and the story itself. So you had some good ones. I think Phantasmagoria was good. I think the Gabriel Knight, The Werewolf Within was also pretty good, which was like a follow-up to Gabriel Knight Sins of the Fathers. That's also a fantastic saga. But then it sort of like started getting weaker and weaker, like in the late 90s. But lo and behold, you had this small company that was starting to make very good shit. Well, not small company, but not so known back in the early 90s. That was Blizzard, right? And then I started playing Warcraft, and I just never came back. I played StarCraft. I was young, and I like to say, and I like to believe that I was pretty good. So I played StarCraft competitively. I played Warcraft 3 competitively. I was actually number 20 in US East at some point in solo, and I was number 1 in US East at some point in 2v2. We actually played. I played human with my friend. We actually played human. We both played human. I remember that perfectly. That's yeah. As a human 2v2, we got to the number 1 position. Sadly, esports were not a big thing back then. Or well, yeah, you had PTL and you had the MGL, but I don't remember if MGL was there. But nevertheless, you did have like the starting elements of esports, but you couldn't live from mouse pads and headphones, right? Just by winning mouse pads and headphones. So I never took that as a very serious venue. And then in 2004, November, you get World of Warcraft. And then I just play World of Warcraft nonstop for about 2 years. And by nonstop, I mean I stopped doing everything. Like I didn't work. I just played World of Warcraft for like 2 years.
That was research, man, for what's going on right now, right?
Absolutely. I was very fortunate to become friends with Scott Kurtz, he draws PvP online. He's a webcomic artist, and we actually created a guild on the Horde side that had a running animosity with friendly animosity with the PAX, with the Penny Arcade guild that was on the same server, and we were like rival guilds. So I got to meet Microholic and Jerry Hawkins back in the first game, BlizzCon. It was those were like the golden years of World of Warcraft, and I played a lot of World of Warcraft back then. I still do, frankly, but that's another topic for later, probably for some of the other questions, because World of Warcraft has had a very interesting journey, in my opinion. Not always the best one, and not always the worst one, but it's something that you learn a lot by playing a game for 18 years and seeing how it evolves through time. So yeah, and of course I played many other games of Mass Effect. I love Mass Effect. I'm a huge Mass Effect fan.
Gonzaga, one of the prime minds, Gonzaga knows a lot about game developing and fighting. Gonzaga, anything about the games, the actual gameplay? Questions for?
Oh yeah. I was curious. What's the vision you all have for this game at Jam City?
I think the high level game vision and we what communicate to everyone is that we're building a theme park with the main attraction. You know, when you go to Disneyland and you see the castle, the big Disney, I call it the Mickey Mouse Castle. Tell my daughter that's Mickey Mouse Castle. I know Mickey Mouse doesn't live there, although he should, because it's the biggest structure there. But it's so you see the castle. That you know. What's our main attraction? And our main attraction is the Colosseum Eternal, our battle. So we're building a theme park where the main attraction is the Colosseum, and everything that you do in that theme park is enhanced by, you know, going every now and then and taking part of the battles that happen in the Colosseum. That's the high level game vision. And so everyone, all of you, your Prime Eternals are, you know, your tickets to a lot of these different attractions. And that's, you know, and we plan to give utility to all the tokens that we create through all these different attractions and through the battle itself that takes place in the combat.
Yeah,
Awesome.
And we're super excited for that. Go ahead, Gonzaga.
Yeah. I was, speaking of combat, Mr. Messina mentioned you were adding a combat design veteran to your team. I was wondering if that had happened yet, and if you could tell us more about that.
I do, and I actually can dox him because I have his permission. I have his blessing. So we
some alpha alert. Okay. We're here for it.
Yeah, you guys are going to know him better because we're planning on doing a dev diary with him. His name is Chris Trammell. He's a legend, to be frank. He is, I would say, I don't want to use the word grandfather of combat, of like this type of combat, because he's not that old. But I don't know if any of you guys ever played the Lord of the Ring games back in the early 2000s, like the Two Towers and the sequels. Okay, he created those games. He is the game designer that was responsible, along with another game designer, for designing those games. He was responsible for designing the combat on those games. I play those games, which for me is absolutely insane that I get to work alongside the guy that imagined and built and was responsible for the inception of some of my favorite games back in the day. He's worked on many other games, but I mentioned the Lord of the Rings once before because a lot of the games that we currently play today, even Champions, are heavily influenced by the combat systems that he designed back then. I can say that like with absolute confidence. I know that a lot of the game systems, a lot of the combat systems that a lot of the most popular games that exist out there are still leverage on a lot of the things that he came back, the ideas that he came up with back in the day. And so I can now tell everyone that Chris Trammell has joined, and he actually has been a part of our team for the last month or so. Has joined our team as part of as lead designer on the combat itself, and it has been I'm going to swear again, fucking magical.
Man,
Nice.
that's. I'm glad you guys have that sort of, it sounds like there's just a lot of talented, bright people working the dev. So look, much respect to all of that. When it comes to like some of this, I'm curious about this. I think a lot of us are. And it's being such a new space, like making and designing the characteristics and the Prime Eternals themselves. Can you just give us some insight into that process, right? Designing the actual 12 different families, the 12 different characters. It looks like there's half male, half female. Coming up with the different characteristics, and then even like the randomly generating or randomly assigning the different characteristics to the different primes. What is that process
and rendering
like?
it all,
and rendering the whole
Like
thing? That whole
rendering
process.
those high resolution movies and GIFs must have taken forever for 7,000 or 10,000 potential.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this would have not have happened. The magic behind that is an engine that we built we call it the VAC, the Visually Awesome Champions, which is currently in its second iteration. Now we're working on the VAC 2.0. And that VAC was, it was pretty much a brainchild of Alejo. And how when we first started talking about this project, and one thing that I want to be very clear, the hard part when I talk about anything that involves Champion is that I don't want to leave anyone outside of, or not give people that deserve credit the right credit, because everything that I will talk to you about has had a lot of people involved. So even the visuals of the Champions have had people like Tom and like Grumman and other people involved in this helping us figure out how many parts, what makes sense, because it's really challenging to create this level of quality while at the same time creating the level of variety that we require for the NFT space, right? So I just say that because there's a lot of people involved in the process, but the VAC, the engine that creates this, we sat down with Alejo once we had like the information of how many champions we were aiming for, what the math behind it would make sense, right? Like the math behind the parts, like Alejo and I didn't come up with that math. As I said, there's a team of very capable people working on the mathematics and all the good numbers behind that. and we already had experience in building games that created, not in the NFT space, but like in the free to play space, that created characters that were that were different based on that look visually different based on the different attributes that you could add to them. And we had successes and failures in the past based on that. And so we just sat down together and figured out how we could break down the champions' visuals in parts that could be both functional but also visually distinct. And then he sat down with our development team and our tech artists and built this pretty much engine that is responsible of putting together the parts based on the mathematics that are given to us. So we have an engine that can read math, create champions, and render them in real time on the fly. So we have like, these champions are not like drawn by hand; they're created procedurally, which of course was a requirement because we know that we're going to need to create new champions in the future as players, breed them or whatever you want to call that process, right? Mm-hmm. And then the cool part though is that we are now not only able to create those champions for the visual NFTs, but that engine also is responsible for bringing those champions into the game client. So you can tell the engine, hey guys, what's champion 1000? How does champion 1344 look like? And the engine goes, it's this gal. It's a Sadari with arcane wings, a Death Sadari with arcane wings. She looks like this. And then the engine, in our case Unity, which is the Unity client, can just bring it in, and lo and behold, there she is. And what's even more cool, and that's why I use the word genius when I mention Alejo, is that it can actually give you that character in different resolutions. So
nice.
And so it actually shifts like the poly count. Exactly. It has LOD, and so you can have champions with 65,000 triangles, and then you can have champions that still look the part with 6,000 triangles, and the reason why we're doing this already is that we're already thinking about accessibility and perhaps other avenues in the future.
So that getting it ready for mobile gaming, pretty much. Then
I don't want to. One philosophy that we have is we only want to talk about what we've already built. I don't want to promise anything in the future right now. But we have the ability to have champions that would be performant on all different platforms, including mobile. That's something that we're already looking at.
Yeah, speaking of the different parts, I was curious. There's been some questions I've seen on the Discord about how the different parts will come into play with combat. Like, can you use your claws to annihilate someone, or are you limited to the weapons?
That's a fantastic question, and that's currently the big thing that we're solving on the combat side. So what we want champions to use their claws and their wings and their fangs, etc., in the combat. Like, we want those to be meaningful. That has a cost, of course, in production, because you have to do animations for all of that, and we're looking at how to solve that in a smart way, because our goal right now is to make sure that players have a good payoff between the makeup of the champion and how that champion behaves in battle, so that two different makeups actually feel different. But at the same time, you also want them to be standardized enough so that when you get a new champion, you don't have to relearn the game. You know what I mean? So there's this very fine line that we're treading, where we are looking into creating functionality for each of the parts, so that when you attack with the claws, you actually use the claws, and at the same time have the ability to have like some basic attacks with the weapons for each of the characters. And as you guys have already know, we have certain weapons that are going to be usable by certain families, and so that all that combined together will make for a very unique experience with each of the champion families and each of the parts.
In
Yeah,
a
really
sense,
interesting.
I'm going to speculate a little bit here. Does that kind of mean that the claws or the fangs is in a sense kind of a free weapon? Can you think of it in that way?
So sort of, or more like a spell, but more like a power, right?
Mm.
More like a power. So let's say if your champion has arcane wings, right? Let's say you have a keymaster with a one-handed sword and shield, which is what her starting weapon set is, and she has wings, right? What we're currently solving for is if she uses her wing attack. Let's say she activates it somehow, the wing attack. I don't want to go into that detail, but let's say she activates her wing attack.
Mm-hmm.
She will actually do a wing attack animation. Maybe she jumps into the air and falls onto the ground because she has the wings. And then the effect is an arcane effect. So maybe she does pushback of all the enemies around her or the enemy around her because her wings are arcane. And so it works more like a spell in that sense than a weapon. But for example, if she had claws, then she could probably, and that's one of the things that we're currently solving for. Like, what do we do with the weapon? Does she hold it in one hand? Like that. That's why I still say this is undefined. But we would probably want her to use her weapon, her claws to slash the enemy.
Icetoad, just to follow up on that, is that because I know there's been a lot of conversation about divinity and purity, and in particular, if having a fully pure champion is a good thing. So is that a way that there had been some conversation about having a mixed purity champion might actually be better because we have this, the circle of life, if you will, where life defeats death, death defeats arcane, arcane defeats life. So if you have a mixed purity, does that give you an advantage in battle where if you do have a death champion and you're fighting a life champion, but you have some life parts, that might actually help to defend you against that just, rock, paper, scissors like matchup?
I think that's the beauty of how the system is being built. It's that it has a lot of depth for theory crafting. And so you definitely, and it's pretty much in the line that you just mentioned. Purity will definitely bring some advantages, the same way that divine parts will also bring some advantages. But you also have in play that rock paper scissors mechanic between the different houses and different advantages. But but think of this: you don't only have that rock paper scissors advantage just on like the math level. But like if you're thinking plainly on a spreadsheet or on a calculator, there's already that depth between that goes to what you're saying. Perhaps for this specific fight, because of my enemy is of the essence, it's of X essence, I might benefit from not being fully pure, but having claws that actually defeat that essence, for example, because I'm really good at executing the claw attack or whatever, or maybe my claw attack is very powerful but you can also add the a little bit of more of a harder to gauge, I would say, component, which is what does that what is the power of that claw specifically, right? Maybe it heals, right? Or maybe it does damage over time, or maybe it stuns the opponent or whatever. And so you have to get your head out of the spreadsheet itself, and there will be certain setups of champions and parts that are going to feel very cool, even outside of the regular rotation of even outside of the regular mathematics that you will find on the spreadsheet.
So Icetoad, go ahead, Gonzaga.
Oh no, I'm just imagining kind of that setup where you have a weapon, and then I can imagine in a certain slots or something where you can put your claw ability or your family ability, and you can maybe pick from the different purity pieces that you've got, and yeah, it just sounds kind of cool, like your G ability,
strategic,
sorry, what's it called? The mobile, like a MOBA, where you have like your regular abilities, and then you have your like passive class ability. Maybe it would go into a slot like that.
I'm not going to confirm or deny anything because we're actually still exploring what's the best way to execute that So right now we have a very fun and solid core battle with weapons. There will actually be a leak on Thursday around that, showing the community a little bit of the progress that's been done with that. Whenever you guys look at some of these, at the game genre that we're doing, which is Arena Fighter, at least for the 1v1 for the 1v1 experience that we're building along with Chris, you will see that there are many nuances on making that right, which is one of the fantastic things that Chris has brought into the project. So things like block canceling and hit pausing and pushback and block stun and all those small nuances are all required to create a very, very rewarding fighting experience. And we have that already with the weapons.
Nice.
And the next step for us is figuring out how the parts come into play, and everything's still on the table. But what I do want to reiterate is that our guiding light on that is we want to make sure that players do feel that the parts that their champion has are making a difference, and that the play style of a champion changes depending on the parts that they have, pretty much. Does that make sense, guys?
Totally.
Awesome.
And
It'll be strategic.
Going into the fight mechanics we've been talking about, just real quick, Icetoad, esports has been mentioned in several times in multiple AMAs. What is your outlook on the esports leagues out there, and how do you see CA fitting into this area of gaming?
This is my personal take on esports, frankly. I think esports is one of those things that you can't force. I think esports, you can't go out with a game and say, okay, now this is esports. I've seen that. I've seen big companies like ours try that in the past and fail. Yeah. The game itself has to be, the game and the gameplay has to make sense for esports. It has to be. It not only has to have depth and and allow for skill and for those like holy shit wow moments that you see like in Dota, for example. But it also has to be watchable, viewable. It has to, there's so many elements to a game when you're talking about how can this game become esports, that I think that it's promising that this will become an esport is hard. But that's my personal take. That said, I've been a competitive player all my life, and I would love nothing more than to see a tournament of champions on Twitch. Like a big one.
I have that same perspective. Like you don't make an esport, a game makes an esport. Exactly. The game becomes an esport. And of course, again, going back to things like watchability, how watchable an esport is also has to do, or a sport or any activity pretty much has to do with, how easy to understand it is. Which is why Dota has always been for me. I love watching Dota, but I think Dota has always had to struggle a little bit, and even League of Legends, with that glass ceiling of bringing someone from the street and sitting them down and saying, "Watch this is fun," and then having to explain a lot of what's going on. But that sort of limitations and those sort of orange flags or are things that you as a designer know, and are things that do come in discussion when you are talking about design, but you're not designing, like you never sit down and go, okay, let's make an esport. That's not the way that works.
Icetoad, while you're talking about kind of complexity and whatnot, is there anything you can tell us? Like, will there be any more essences other than Death, Life, and Arcane?
That's a question from one of the viewers.
Sorry?
One of the viewers in chat was asking that.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm not looking at the chat. Hey, shout out to chat. I'm looking at this.
Sprite Remix. Oh, sorry. Shout out to Sprite Remix for the question. We love the questions.
Shout out.
Mm-hmm.
We do. I mean, we in the lore we do have the 7 houses. We have the air, earth, water, and fire that still have not joined the fray, and there's some lore reasons behind that, and there's some really cool story for those stories, for those houses, when they will actually become, let's say, active and so that there is already a space for them in the lore for joining the what we call the existing houses, which are the Arcane, Death, and Life.
So Icetoad, you mentioned just a little bit ago Dota for your in esports. I know we had heard that you had a kind of mentor or someone that you looked up to, and was IceFrog, who was one of the main developers for Dota 2. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about that? And did you ever get a chance to work with IceFrog?
Oh, I wish. No, I mean, I have a list of creatives. So I think that I'm going to answer the question in two parts. I think that that as creatives, we all have like this creative DNA tree, right? Where you have had people that have inevitably affected you as a creative, and so everything that you do and everything that you create has their DNA within it. And I think IceFrog is one of those, like the work that he did with the original Dota and then with Dota 2 has always been part of that creative DNA for me. Especially when I look at like how competitive and how like the competitive aspect of some of the games. I think he's done a fantastic work. He's like an admirable designer, and so that's why I picked the nickname Icetoad as sort of an homage to that work that he's done.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
So if you're using him kind of as like part of your DNA, you like his style of gameplay, is there any specific games that like the community can go out and kind of play now that we can maybe get a feel for what Champions Ascension might be like when you guys start releasing it?
I mean, if you want to get a feel of the combat, I mean Monster Hunter could be a good example of what we're looking for on that like moment to moment combat. There's another game by Ubisoft that's not that well known called For Honor. I don't know if some of you guys know that also could give you guys a good impression of like the level of quality and the animations and like what we're aiming for. So I'd say those two are at least from the combat side. As I said, we're right now focused on building that 1v1 experience with Chris, but that is probably not going to be as you guys might have seen on the Medium article yesterday. There's already some other stuff being built that we will probably reveal a little bit later down the road in more detail. But the 1v1 battle, probably those two are good references for you to check out.
Okay.
You know, we love the.
Go ahead,
Mackin. I was just
gonna
gonna pivot to the Medium article itself.
Go right on.
Yeah. So speaking of that's a wonderful update, and in the Web3 community, we like the updates. It seems like I'm a little bit new here. Web3 community is just new in general. We love the leaks, we love the updates. But sometimes people in Discord or other folks feel like they're not getting enough of the updates, even though you as the vice president is actively in the Discord, responding to things, making comments, giving off the leaks. And it seems like there's a fine line between, deciding what information to give, saying too much, and then, not saying enough. And I'm sure that's a tough process. How do you work through that, or how do you handle what to decide? How do you handle what information to share and what to keep and what to keep for a surprise later? What is that process like?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because because there's a lot of responsibility, because we are a large company which comes from which has a lot of benefits in the space in regards to like stability and our ability to execute, but it also comes with a lot of responsibilities. With great power comes great responsibility, and we have responsibilities on such basic things as not doxing people that don't want to be doxed. So that's why I actually had a conversation with Chris, I think yesterday, before coming to the podcast today, to make sure that he was okay with me mentioning his name and mentioning his career in case I was asked that question, because I really wanted to tell everyone that he's on board and be as excited as we are on that. But you also have a responsibility on what the project is being built and the timelines. And so, just to give you a very simple example, if I create false expectations regarding a deliverable that a team is working on, I'm going to put pressure on that team that they don't deserve. And then I'm going to affect not only their work, but also their quality of life. And that's something that we're very mindful about. I don't want people to feel, right? I don't want people to feel pressure just because especially because I'm a VP, right? And so, this Icetoad put something out there, and so people are now asking for that. And people are like, yeah, that looks fantastic. When? And it's like, wow, I just put pressure. You know what I mean? It might feel like I'm trying to put pressure on some people without really trying to do that, but just being excited about certain leaks. And so I really do take into account a lot of the times when I'm trying to leak something. I love leaking because I as a game developer, I know how exciting the game development process is, and I want you guys to be part of that and get excited with us, because I really do get excited every time they send me something or I see a new thing coming out, and I'm, wow, my team is so talented. I want to share this with the world, but at the same time, I also have to be mindful of what type of pressures we put, and I also have to be mindful of what kind of things we are saying and communicating. And as I might have mentioned this earlier today, but the philosophy that we have as a team is that we don't want to spend too much time on what we're going to do. We want to talk about what we've done. And slowly but surely, we're building a lot of the things that we've already done. And that's the leaks are that, right? The leaks are not stuff it's things that the team has already done. They're completed. You guys can download them, see them, listen to them, etc. And so that's where I want most of our focus to be. But I also don't want to leak things that might generate false expectations or might confuse the community. So there's definitely a process there, and we've actually connected with the marketing team. Actually, with more than the marketing team, with the marketing team and some of our operational VPs to make sure that we're all in sync. Like we're not telling different stories. We're all looking to adding towards the same goal, which is making a fantastic game, pretty much.
That's and I'm glad I have you on, because that's some wonderful perspective and even us, the Prime Minds here, we try to think about it from all angles. And then it's like, wow, we can hype things up and get really excited, right? Us as a community, and then even you as a VP, like you said. I don't think anybody really thought about the devs that are actually making those things happen. And when somebody's getting hyped, the other person might be feeling too much pressure. And for one, I'm glad that there's a company that's really concerned about the well-being of their employees, because that's, at the end of the day, that's just going to allow you all to work better and give us a good product. So you usually gave me some perspective on that. Although I think I'm one of the more patient people in the community, and that's just me, just how I am. But I can see both sides. I can see why some people are impatient, but now that you gave me that perspective, I can see how you can't just leak everything and build a lot of pressure on the team like that. So thank you for that.
No problem. I mean, I get why people are impatient, and we're very aware that the NFT space moves very fast, and that people are used to, timelines and deliverables that are much faster than what you are used to in the regular gaming space. To be frank, that's part of what excites me personally in the space, because I love iterating. I see game development sort of like very, very similar to the scientific method, where you have a hypothesis, you test it out, you try it, and then see if it was correct or not. The hypothesis is usually trying to fulfill a certain experience for the player, whether it's feeling fun or feeling empowered, competitive, whatever. And I think that this space brings you the opportunity to do that with the players themselves, and not wait 4 years to release a game and then cross your fingers. Like, you can do that very iteratively. But at the same time, making games is fucking hard. Don't let anyone ever lie to you about that. Like, I see a lot of projects out in the space where people think that, then we'll just build a game. Even if you have a lot of money, it's hard building a game. Even if you are a very big company, it's making a successful game is hard. Making a game that's engaging, finding the fun, creating a sustainable economy, doing all the things that Zero and the Toronto team do fantastically. Those things are super hard, and usually they take time. There's some things that you just can't rush, even if the space demands it. And so I think that what we're striving for as a team and as a company is always finding that balance of being smart and diligent about what the community expects, but also making sure that the game that we deliver is actually a good, fun game. Because in the end, that's the only thing that's going to matter. In 3 years, 2 years, when the dust has settled, it's only the good games that are going to be out there, not the ones that necessarily move the faster.
Right. And I'm thinking a lot of that energy too, with folks that are waiting, or maybe impatient, just a lot of stored up energy. I think that's kind of why we got together with this podcast with the Prime Minds. It's like you can focus that energy in other ways, right? The build community, that's part of Web3, and helping out the project in other ways instead of just asking for things. And we appreciate the shout out in the last Medium article, right? You gave Prime Minds a shout out. We weren't expecting that, so we appreciate that. There's a codex, there was the art competition, and other things. But there's still a lot of energy out there in the community. Do you have anything to say to folks where it's like, how can they help the project, either directly or indirectly, like help the project move forward? Is there any other ways that you all are thinking about that the community can get into?
I honestly think becoming involved in the other community initiatives is the best way that you can help this game grow and become one of the biggest IPs in the world, which is what I personally I want this to become. I want everyone to know that this game exists. I want this to become huge, and I that's one of the things that, as I said at the beginning, humbles me the most, is seeing the community reaction to what you're building, because I'm of the mind that you as an artist do not exist without the audience. And I know that there's a lot of even game developers that feel that you as an artist are like you're self-validated and artists can exist in almost a vacuum. But I'm of the mind that anything that you do is only valid as it reaches, as it becomes more massive, and as it reaches the most amount of eyes, because that's how you actually affect people and actually affect life. That's, for me, is the intention of creating things. And so if you're part of the community right now, help us fulfill that promise by engaging with the efforts that your fellow peers are doing on the community. Write fan fiction, draw, talk in Discord, tell us what's ailing you. Or read everything. And not everyone has to participate actively, but know that all these different places exist so that you're also informed about the project. And when someone from the outside asks you about it, you can tell them with like firsthand information.
Right.
So speaking of information, there was a teaser that you gave us, Icetoad, that had to do with a few things, like the Aria of Betrayal, Lament of Dead, and Melody of the Dawn. Is that something that you might want to share with the community that we have listening right now?
Oh, that's some cool alpha. I don't know if I should. Okay.
Hey, if you can drop
Ryan.
alpha, it's got to be here. It's got to be on
Ryan.
Prime Minds.
Okay, this is still a discussion, so it's not canon. But
we'll take any hint.
Yeah, but so you guys saw the lore drop this week of the book Return, right? And so as you can see, their celestials are let's call them like spell singers, right? They can use they have realized that the world of the reality, they can manipulate the notes or the strings that compose reality, right? And via music and via notes and via musical compositions, they were able to create to alter reality, and that's where the aberrations come from in the story, etc. And so let's just say that the Ayas, before they became undead, pretty much. Discovered the music, but not the lyrics, and that's what caused their downfall. And they still know the music. This is not canon. This is not canon. It's still under discussion. They still know the music, but they can't sing. They can't sing the lyrics, and that's why a lot of their moves in combat have names like that. Those are the names of moves in combat for the AS.
We love it.
Oh, that makes so much
The
sense.
tune, but not the words. That's fun.
That's Ryan.
It's amazing.
Man, and you're a creative writer. I just found out you're a writer too. So look, I bet you guys are vibing in there and just making the best possible IP, like you said, and story and lore, and we love all of it.
Probably one of my favorite professional experiences have been working with the people that I work on. Working with Ryan is amazing, frankly.
Shout out to Ryan. We want to have him on in a couple of weeks, but we'll follow up. You know, we have our sources.
He's not just very talented. You usually have. I usually respect talent independent of the personality. That's just me. So if someone is an asshole but he's super talented, he gets my respect.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm fortunate enough that in the team that I work with, everyone's not just super talented, but amazing human beings. I literally sent a text the other day to Ryan that said, like, thank you for existing or something like that, because he's that type of person.
Wow. Yeah, I think we can get even the vibes through the Discord. So, yep, it'll be a pleasure to have him on. So just to round this out, man, and you know, we have one more segment left, so we'd like you to hang out, but we have one more question too. What is it? I mean, we've mentioned a lot of things: the lore, the gameplay, the community, probably things we're not even thinking about yet or didn't even discuss in this podcast, in this episode. But what is it? What is it that rises to the top that you're just most bullish about when it comes to this project?
I mean, I think that the fact that there's nothing else like what we're doing out there. I mean, we're going to the level of quality that we reached, and the level of people that are involved in the project and the support that we have, even starting from like the C level in the company, is it's like we're playing with power, to quote an old magazine. I'm really excited, and just as maybe sometimes the community, I really want to get some of the stuff that we're building out there to everyone's hands because it really has such a high level of quality that it will put a smile in everyone's faces for sure. That's what excites me the most.
Can't wait. All right, Icetoad, why don't you hang around for a few more minutes? But we have
totally. I have my tea. I have my cup of tea here. I'm a tea person. I'm not a coffee person. I'm a tea person, and so I have my cup of tea here. So I have all the time in the world.
Let's hang out, man. I'm a coffee guy, and I just ran out, but it's okay. So we have a quick sponsor break, and after this sponsor break, we're going to come back with our primetime segment featuring Icetoad.
Awesome.
Primetime is proudly sponsored by Rat's Butchery. Messina can be a wild place, in the arena and out. Bring all them critters you find to me, and I'll get them primed and ready for a nice meal. You can even have a geckoid kebab on me. Rat's Butchery. It ain't Kelvin's, but it'll do.
In Messina, and there's gonna be a lot of little businesses coming up, a butcher shop. And I think I don't know. I remember writer Ryan joking about some fried dragon on a stick. We'll see if that comes out.
There's going to be a pizzeria. I mean, there has to be. We're calling it Slice of Messina, the pizzeria.
Right. And then so we have this primetime segment. We're gonna run into our primetime segment. And this is where we identify a prime eternal. We give him a shot, him or her, a chance in the spotlight and take a look at its characteristics, its attributes, and what it could do in in Messina, what it might be able to do in the arena. And what we're going to need is a number. I'm wondering, Icetoad, we didn't ask you, but are you a Prime holder? Do you intend on playing the game?
I 100% intend on playing the game. I don't want to. I'm a proud Prime holder, but I don't want to showcase any of my Primes. I want to give someone else
give someone else some time to shine.
Some time. What I will say though, is I'm on the lookout for an Aeus. I've been for a while. I'm looking for an Aeus for my collection.
That's my.
That's all I'm gonna say.
You know what? Let's. Does the community have one? If not, I have my best one is an Aeos, where it's like, okay, I was thinking about arena fighting, and I was thinking about, which one can probably do the most damage, and I saw a very good deal on an Aeos. Guys, you think we can pull mine up? What do you think?
Yeah.
Let's pull yours up so I can draw. Look. The reason for Aeos. Let's not say anything crazy here. The reason that I'm looking for an Aeos, it's not functional. But it's the fact that she's very close to my heart because her face is an homage to the Katrina, which was our little way of inserting part of our culture, like our Latin American culture, into some of the character design. So and she turned out amazing. I mean, she looks badass. But my reasons are purely visual and nostalgia.
I love
not anything else.
I think she is wonderful looking, then she scares the shit out of me when she does that scream.
Oh, that's Desadari. That's Desadari.
Oh shit.
Let's look at Desadari. I love Desadari too.
My Sadari. Why did I think that was Aeos? Okay.
Let's look Desadari too. I mean, I think all of our gals, it's funny because when I first started playing MMOs, I only played male characters, and from like 6 years until now, I love playing female characters on MMOs. So I've had that shift, and I love our female lineup. And I guess because of that, I have one daughter and another one on the way. So it's going to be girls only club in my house.
I love the woman characters too, man. Even going back to Chung Li. So
here's one that we got. 6758 is a P3 D1 Aeos.
Oof. Where can I look at what you guys are looking? Do I just join into the channel, or
we can give you the number?
Yeah.
You can pull it up 6758,
okay, cool.
Or you can pull up YouTube.
All right.
The Prime Viewer app yet?
I saw that the Prime Viewer app has some issues on
iOS.
On iOS, what happened?
I tried submitting it for beta testing, and they refused it because you can't purchase the NFT on the App Store, so they won't let you view it.
Okay.
I might be able to put it on.
Can you do that on web? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
so we can get a web version of it.
Yeah, like I think that's even more accessible for people that don't have the iOS phones.
All right, so let's start with an Aeos then. Is that the one we have up?
What is the number?
6758.
6758. All right, let's see.
I seen this one. I think I've been looking, or because I just off the bat, I know she has the that's the rare arcane wings. Is that rare? Or is that? Let me see.
3%.
Rare arcane wings, 3%. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I see, so it's Death Essence with the death matching tail. And just we picked this up. I don't think this is an alpha drop, or if you're listening new, it's like when the divine trait is matching the essence, it might give some sort of a power boost in the arena, right? We have Icetoad himself here, so he can confirm or deny. And then even outside the arena, it looks like the purity matching the divinity might give some sort of power boosts just, around with some mini games or in Messina. Probably things that aren't even developed yet, but it's got that matching part. One divine with the death essence.
She looks amazing. Her wings are death. What? No, wait. Her wings are.
I think it's the arcane frame.
Arcane. Yeah, those are the arcane. Yeah, those are the arcane. Those are the flight frame, I think. Oh yeah, those are the flight frame. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It looks a little like the death. Is that the E? So I'm looking at the YouTube. Usually I pull it up. Is that the
I'm looking at the YouTube too.
Yeah, so the blue,
It's rare. I think Flight Flame
blue is rare.
if I remember.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm pulling all this from memory, so I'm sorry if I make some. Yeah, this is rare. I think. Yeah.
Us too, right? And then so that's I kind of like, and I don't know. I know a lot of people, and actually, we're just looking at the OpenSea floor. It's like the more divine matching traits, it's kind of going for a higher premium. But I think we discussed a little bit, and here's what I was thinking too, just catching it from some of the AMAs, is you can't kind of neglect the traits that aren't matching because it might make a more well-rounded champion.
Exactly.
Also.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's sort of what I was mentioning when you have to take into account like what power is associated with that part. So let's just like theorycraft here, but maybe you have a death part that inflicts damage over time, and then you could have a life part that heals every time the enemy takes damage or something like that, and so you get a heal over time with that with that interaction. And so you start thinking about not just, as I said, not just what's on the spreadsheet, but also like on combat functionally what can happen when you start combining the what those parts actually do and how they perform. So it will definitely be very interesting. Of course, more is more. So more purity is going to be beneficial. More divine parts are going to be beneficial. But that doesn't mean that they're a key that opens every lock. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right.
Sound like a little vampiric touch and vampiric embrace there.
I love, yeah. Those are not spells yet, but yes, that's yeah. I mean, we are one thing that we are currently building with the dev team is the technical stack that allows us to support different effects for abilities and spells like dashing and stunning and vampiric effects, healing, etc.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yep. So that was, and then do we have another champion too? We usually do two of them. We can dive into.
You have number
622.
622.
Number 622 for the folks listening, and this gets replayed on the podcast. So, I'll do my best.
Ooh, nice. A Death Keymaster.
Death Keymaster. I love the look of those wings.
With the
from what
death
I noticed.
Claws.
Yeah. Yep. Matching death claws.
Those are the bone frame wings. That's the ones I got confused about. Those are not the actual death. Those are the bone frame death wings. They look amazing.
Yeah. So what is this? We have the Divinity 2,
and she seems like 3 purity. I think she has 3 purity. Yeah,
like you said, more is more. Yep. And the war paint is matching, and then the Fang. So then a little bit of diversity there with the divine life fangs. But looking at the wings bone frame, so it's the epic, and I seen just looking at this, and after a while I realized it's the epic bone frame wings. But then when you go to the divinity, it's the same look of the wings. It just has the divine powers too.
Yes, exactly. Well, the emissive materials is what you would technically call it for the divine parts.
Yeah, and I noticed that, like, okay, it's a quick way to categorize it. It's going to be epic, and then the rest of the champions, it's like it'll just the best it can do after the primes. The best they can do is epic, right? I think that's established.
Yep.
Nice. And then when it comes to
while we have,
well, go ahead.
I'll say while we have you here, Icetoad, this Keymaster has divine war paint. Can you give us any like alpha on what the war paint's going to be in relation to the gameplay?
Still working on it, so I can't give you any alpha. But to the conversation that we had earlier on us looking towards making the parts functional, it's possible that the war paints are going to bring passives for the champions.
Awesome, thank you.
Nice. Anything else about this wonderful Keymaster, guys? What are you thinking? Well, I got a quick question. It's like when we played Street Fighter and things like that, the movements, maybe some of the advantages were different, were likely. And I know that type of gameplay, we still have to wait for it. But will these different champions, will some be more agile? Will some have more powerful attacks? How does that look when it comes to each different champion? That's an Icetoad question.
That's the direction we're looking at for sure. That is the direction that we're looking at. So that again, what we really want to deliver on is like two elements, right? The class fantasy. We want you to feel that the Karkadon plays different from the Whisperer, and exactly towards what you just said. What makes the difference? What makes that difference, right? And of course, it has to be. It has to make sense with the visuals and even the backstory of the champions, right? The Whisperer is, of course, less heavy than the Karkadon, so there's going to be difference in gameplay there. And then the second part has to do with the functionality of the parts. So we just need to make sure that when those two come together, you're still respecting the fantasy of the original champion. And we're looking into design concept like family, perhaps family traits, or even back to the Street Fighter example, an ultimate, perhaps a family ultimate that might be affected by the champion's essence. So those two are still on the table, and that's literally one of the things that we are going to start prototyping and testing out internally soon.
Nice.
Yeah, you got to see how it feels. You can't just decide on paper.
Yeah, no, exactly. So here's one thing, guys, that I have learned over the years. You can design games via spreadsheet, or you can design them iteratively and going to find the fun first. And I've seen games on both ends that are really, really good. But I personally believe that designing on a spreadsheet first is riskier, because at least from the philosophy that we have, I think if you find the fun, then everything else will fall into place.
Right. And I think even that whole thing we just covered just now, I think that's why real gamers, well, I think we're all real gamers. Sometimes I think I am. Sometimes when I compare myself to someone like Gonzaga and everyone else, it's like, oh, maybe I'm not a real gamer. Anyway, I digress. That's why people like Gonzaga has like a whole family. They can choose from 12 because maybe we don't know which ones we want to use till the game comes. So I'm still aiming for that. Icetoad, we've had you for about an hour and a half, man. So we really appreciate it. And while we had you here, we just had to maybe extend it a little bit. We had a lot to cover. Is there anything else before we go? Anything else you want to express to the community? Any message you want to give to the champions, the Prime Eternal holders? Any parting words for us?
I actually want to take the time to thank my team and the people that I worked with, because as I've said, you on these podcasts, you usually will get to talk to some of the leaders of the project. But there's so many people involved in this project making such amazing work that makes us look good, so that we can come on these podcasts and talk to the community. And I just want to make sure that everyone listening in that works with us knows how much we appreciate the effort and how fantastic your work is, because it's got us here and it has such an engaged community. So thank you, team.
Man,
you guys rock.
We, all of us, Prime Minds, I'm sure, like, the sentiment is the same, the whole community. Thanks for what you do. I think I said it in the beginning. We wouldn't even have this podcast. We wouldn't have anything to be excited about. We wouldn't have anything to FOMO into. All the above, if it wasn't for you, Icetoad, and everybody working on this game. I can only imagine how many moving parts, something new, something as big as this, in this new space. It's amazing what you guys are doing. So we're glad to be here. And that's it, guys. We've been an hour and a half. Not going to keep anybody any longer. We're going to see you next week. We have to decide what that show is going to be about. We'll see what developments are coming up. And until then, you all know, Prime Minds think alike.
But guys, it was fantastic.
For sure.